Welcome to ObsidianTales, the home of true horror stories that will keep you awake at night. Tonight's story is one that proves the most terrifying voices you'll ever hear don't come from the dead, they come from the living. And sometimes they're closer than you think. Back in 2018, I rented a cheap apartment in a rundown complex. It wasn't the nicest, but it was all I could afford. The building was old, and the walls were thin. You could hear everything your neighbors were doing: arguments, TV shows, even people cooking. The first week I moved in, I noticed something strange. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd sometimes hear whispering through the air vents. At first, I figured it was my upstairs neighbor. Maybe he stayed up late talking on the phone. The whispers were faint, but I could always make out a word or two. Watch, hide, quiet. The weirdest part was that whenever I pressed my ear to the vent, the whispering would stop, like whoever it was knew I was listening. One night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3:30 a.m., I was lying in bed when the whispering started again. This time, it was louder. I walked to the vent, pressed my ear against it, and I swear to God I heard a man's voice say, "I can see you." I froze. I pulled away immediately, staring at the vent, trying to convince myself it was some kind of prank, but my stomach was in knots. Nobody should be able to see me through a vent. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I asked the landlord about the unit above me. He looked confused and said, "There is no one above you. The top floor has been vacant for months." That didn't make sense. I'd heard footsteps up there before, dragging sounds, even muffled coughing. I told him about the whispering, but he just brushed it off and said, "Old buildings make noise. You'll get used to it." But I didn't get used to it, because it got worse. About a week later, I woke up to the sound of heavy breathing coming from the vent. Not whispering, just slow, steady breathing. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and shined it into the vent. For a split second, I swear I saw something move. Something pale, pulling back into the darkness. That was enough for me. I called the police. They searched the unit above me and said it was empty, dusty, no signs of anyone living there. But I knew what I heard and what I saw. The last night I ever spent in that apartment was the worst. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of my vent rattling. Not whispering, not breathing, rattling, like someone was forcing it open. When I turned on the light, my heart nearly stopped. The vent cover was hanging loose, screws on the floor, and from the darkness inside the duct, a voice whispered, clear as day, "Found you." I bolted out of the apartment in nothing but a hoodie and never went back. Some nightmares live in our heads. Others are built into the walls around us. And if you ever hear a whisper in your vents late at night, whatever you do, don't listen back.
It was the summer of 2019 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was 17 years old, and my parents decided to spend the weekend in Chicago visiting family. I didn't go. I wanted the house to myself. At first, it felt like freedom. No rules, no curfew. I stayed up late, ate junk food, blasted music. But by the second night, being alone didn't feel fun anymore. It felt heavy. The air was hot, sticky. Classic Midwest summer. I had the windows cracked, the TV playing quietly in the background, and I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. That's when I heard it. 3 slow knocks on the back door. At first, I froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't hurried. It was the kind of knock someone gives when they already know you're there. My heart started pounding. Nobody was supposed to be there. I stood up slowly, my ears straining. Then again, 3 slow knocks. I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find, my palms slick with sweat, and walked to the back door. The porch light was off, so I flipped it on. Nothing, just the backyard, the swing set, the grass swaying a little in the humid night air. I locked the door tight and told myself it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe I was just on edge. But then, about 15 minutes later, I noticed something that nearly made me pass out. Across the living room was a large window, and in the glass, I saw it, the faint reflection of a figure, someone standing outside. perfectly still, just watching. I spun around. Nothing. Nobody was there. But the reflection was too clear to mistake. At that point, my chest felt like it was caving in. I shut all the blinds, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to my room. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was imagining things. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to something that made me feel sick to my stomach. Footsteps. Not outside, not on the porch. Inside, slow, careful, coming from the kitchen, moving toward the living room. I lay there, my entire body frozen, listening. The steps creeped across the hardwood floor, then stopped. Silence. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking so hard I could barely press the buttons, and called 911. I whispered what was happening, trying not to make a sound. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line, stay quiet, and that officers were on their way. Those 10 minutes felt like an hour. I kept listening. I swear I heard faint breathing at the bottom of the stairs. When the police finally arrived, they searched the house from top to bottom. Every room, every closet. They checked the locks, the windows, the basement. Nothing. No sign of forced entry. No one in the house. The officers tried to calm me down, say maybe I fell asleep and dreamed the footsteps. Maybe it was just stress from being alone. But the next morning when the sun came up, I walked into the living room, and that's when I saw it, right by the back door, on the rug, a single muddy footprint, and it wasn't mine. If you've ever had something unexplainable happen while home alone, share your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more true horror stories every week. This is Obsidian Tales, where the real nightmares begin.